Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome back to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. Your host, Jeff Lerner, here with you yet again. This is, I want to say, episode number 80, something like that. We're a young show, but we have a lot of fun. We're growing up fast. Anyway, I'm joined today by Mr. Juan Pablo. He is the founder of 100% Financed, teaches real estate investing, helps people figure out how to acquire properties without having to come out of pocket. I guess that's the theme of 100% Financed. And I'm excited to learn about that because I am actually of a mind lately to acquire properties myself. So this is basically going to be me just asking Juan all the questions I want to know the answer to anyways, and we'll publish the interview and everyone else can listen too. But anyway, Juan, I'm excited to have you on Millionaire Secrets. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. So like I said, I have a million questions, and honestly, it's not even like a million little questions. It's kind of like one big question of like, so tell me what to do. And then I'm going to shut up and let you talk. But before I do that, I would like to back up a little bit. So you strike me as pretty young. Maybe you're just gifted that way. But let me ask, how old are you?
Well, I got some grace. So.
Okay. All right. That's all right.
I'm 36.
36. Okay. So yeah, you're not so young that we can dismiss you. You're old enough to know a few things, and clearly, because you've done so well for yourself, but you also had a career before real estate.
I did.
Right.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and how you ended up here, because clearly whatever it was before wasn't like maybe your choice or where you ended up wanting to stay.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So a little bit about my background. So I graduated from the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and didn't have a job lined up. And my credit was down the toilet, pretty much. Poor credit, no job lined up, but I had a major in economics and a minor in stats, and a 3.2 GPA upon graduation, and I couldn't get a job, mainly because I was applying for jobs in the financial services industry, because initially I wanted to be a financial planner of some sort. Uh-huh. But I kept getting denied for the job. And it wasn't because of the interview or the resume. It was because of my credit. Because at that time, they started doing credit checks. And they said, well, you're somewhat of a conflict of interest. You can't advise people on financial matters if your credit score is not up to par. So that was a humbling experience, So I ended up moving in with my mother. And I love her and all, but it's just tough moving back home from college,
Yeah.
Tell me to take out the trash, go cut the grass, stop eating all the food, stuff like that. Mom just being mom.
Yeah.
But she did one good solid favor for me. She purchased me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
Yeah, never heard of the book, but she just said, hey, this is something you might be interested in. I devoured that book in about 2 days, Jeff, and I decided after reading that book, I'm going to be a real estate investor.
I got it right here. Yeah.
I didn't have any resources to dive into real estate or any connections, no one to model. I just had a desire. So shortly after that, I'm continuously applying for jobs, to see if I can get a job. So I ended up landing a job in New York City with the government because they don't do credit checks, right? So I get a job with the United States Census Bureau, and it complemented my major and minor because I gather stats on the economy, right? And that's my major and minor, econ and statistics.
Yeah.
So while working there for the government, it was a good learning experience in regard to following processes as well as management. But working for the government, it has a lot of bureaucracy, paperwork, procedures in place, and they don't really appreciate creativity. It's just the way things are done around here. That was pretty much the model, or the motto, I should say, with working for the government. And I had one situation, Jeff, where, just being competitive as well. I said, you know what? I'm a supervisor. I want my staff to improve their performance, just for a pat on the back. So you know what? If I'm competitive, there might be people in my staff that are competitive as well. So I sent out a mass email advertising a contest, which basically was, Jeff, whoever completes the most amount of work in a week, I'll treat you out to Applebee's 2 for $20. Plus, I'll give you a certificate of appreciation and an umbrella that's in our storage closet, right? So total investment was for this contest out of my pocket was $20.
Right.
Everything else was free. So I sent out the mass email with the contest, and our results went through the roof within those 7 days. And I was excited, and I got called into the office by my supervisor, and she kind of looked over me, Jeff, and said, so what do you think you're doing? And I laughed. I'm like, getting results. Isn't that what it looks like? And she wasn't laughing. She had a straight face, a scowl on her face. And she said, I guess rhetorically, don't you know who you work for? You work for the government. There's paperwork, there's policies, there's bureaucracy. You cannot incentivize your staff with monetary value. And so I responded, well, you treat us out for drinks on Fridays when we do a good job for the week. Isn't that the same thing? She says, yes, but I'm not sending a mass email advertising it. She said, you know what, Juan? I have to write you up. I have to put this in your file. It's a warning. And this is the best advice she ever gave me, Jeff. She said, well, maybe the government is for you. Maybe you're better suited for doing your own thing. Mm-hmm. And when she said that, of course, I was upset. I felt dejected walking out of her office, discouraged a tad bit, and a little frustrated too. So I immediately typed up my resignation letter. I didn't turn it in. I wasn't that stupid. But I typed it up and I posted it on my cubicle so I can see it day in and day out as motivation, as a visual, right? That one day I'm going to turn in this exact resignation letter. And I decided, that was the defining moment, Jeff, where I decided that, you know what, I'm going to stop treating real estate investing as a hobby, where I would read a book here and there. I would go to a networking event, listen to a podcast here and there. I stopped treating it like a hobby and treated it like a part-time job, meaning I had set hours working for myself every day for about 2 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and 4 hours on Saturday, where I would clock in and clock out for myself to do nothing but real estate related activities. Yeah.
Man, like I said, I've done something like 80 of these episodes, and everybody's got that moment. Every single person has that moment. And it's interesting because it's, I never really hear stories. I mean, obviously the process takes time. Like you didn't become a sophisticated real estate investor in that moment.
No.
But in a way you kind of did too. I mean, metaphysically, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's got that moment. I swear, every single person I've talked to, they all have a moment. And what, I always think about the audience, right? What's the audience hearing? What can the audience take away? Is like every single person in the audience. I mean, if they're listening to a show called Millionaire Secrets, where I interview successful entrepreneurs, that probably means they want to go be a successful entrepreneur, right? So what that means to me is everybody has either had that moment or they haven't had it yet. And you talked about treating it like a hobby. And what were you doing? You were reading books. You were listening to podcasts. Well, this is a podcast. There could be a lot of people. I'll bet the majority of the people listening right now are like you were, where they're entrepreneurs because they read books, they listen to podcasts, including Millionaire Secrets. And we thank you. We thank you for listening. But you're not an entrepreneur until you've had that moment. And if you have that moment and you don't act on it, then you're going to have regret. And that's the worst. And so how long did it take you from when you posted that letter in your own cubicle to when you turned it in?
I actually post-dated into my 30th birthday. So it took me 4 years.
4 years.
I gave myself a tight time frame as well. So to your point, that moment, it was a paradigm shift where, you know what, I'm going to be committed, dedicated, and I'm going to be disciplined to make this reality. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. Similar to what Robert Kiyosaki says in his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, on how the rich and the middle class think differently among certain things, especially money, such as a middle class person will say, oh, we can't afford it. And their mindset just stops thinking. But a rich person, even though they might have started off poor, middle class, and became rich, their mindset is, how can I afford it? He changed that into a question. Mm-hmm. So when you change that to a question, you start coming up with ideas. And you only need one idea to work. You can have 100 ideas, but as long as one of them works, that can be your key to financial freedom. So that was the mindset I had. I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 4 years. I'm going to work Monday through Thursday for 2 hours a day on real estate investing, 4 hours on Saturday for the next 4 years, and I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to continue to think how. Maybe I should try this strategy. Maybe I should try this market. Maybe I should try flipping, wholesaling, or real estate investing, buy and hold, multifamily, single family. I kept coming up with many different ideas and strategies until I found the right one that worked for my situation.
So I want to know what worked, but first I'd like to maybe hear about what are some things you tried that didn't work, and how did you keep yourself from getting discouraged?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. First time I got to ask that on the podcast. Oh. So kudos to you. Hey. So I would say one of the things I realized that didn't work, it was two things, I should say. The first thing was before I got started investing in real estate, my credit was pretty poor. As I mentioned, I couldn't get a job as a result of my poor credit score. And so my mindset, without receiving any type of consultation and advice, was, oh, I just need to pay off all my debt. And so I worked extremely diligently at my day job. So even though I had that bad experience, I still worked diligently at my job because, for one, it paid my bills, and for two, my name was associated with it. You know, I take pride in my name, so I want to make sure I do a good job. And so I worked hard, worked overtime to the point I became debt-free in 2 years after graduating from college. I paid off all my credit card debt, student loans within 2 years. So it was about $23,000 worth of debt, and I was making $39,000 a year, living in New York City. You know, so rent was cheap. Yeah. So my first mistake was paying all my debt off.
Right.
I didn't realize that, especially with my revolving debt, that's similar to credit card debt or personal lines of credit. I only need to pay that down to 30%, meaning my debt utilization only need to be 30%. So if I had a Bank of America credit card with $1,000 maximum limit, I only need to pay that down to a $300 balance, because the rest of that capital I could have used to buy more properties instead of using that to pay down the debt. Mm-hmm. So that was my first mistake prior to buying a property. My first mistake buying a property was that I pretty much bought the property in my backyard. So I ended up obtaining the property. It was a duplex in Jersey City through FHA. So I had to put 3.5% down, which is not bad. I let the one unit rent out the other. And I received a grant. There was a grant going on. I think this is about the time President Obama was getting elected, and he had like an $8,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. He had some special thing going on.
Right.
So I was able to qualify for that, which was great. But the mistake is, I wish I would have bought properties faster, or multi-unit properties faster, in a market that's affordable, safe, with decent returns. Jersey City is a good market, don't get me wrong, but I bought a duplex for $355,000. Later down that line, I ended up acquiring a 9-unit for $218,000.
Right. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard economics. 2 units, $350,000. Because I mean, using kind of the 1% rule, like you'd have to rent each unit out for $1,800 a month to make break even or make a little money, depending on your financing. So, and I don't know the rents in Jersey City, but I don't imagine there's a lot of people wanting to rent a small apartment in a duplex for $1,800 a month.
Yes, that's a good point, the 1% rule. But the way I got around that, and I was unaware of the 1% rule during that time. first deal.
I mean,
But
you
the way
live there, so it's a little different because you're going to have a housing cost regardless. But
I was renting the rooms out as well. So I had
oh,
a small business. I called it Easy Rooming. This is before Airbnb. So I had a website called easyrooming.com where I would lease my rooms in my unit. I had a 3-bedroom, so I would lease out the rooms to international students who wanted to come to the New York area to improve their English, as well as medical students who came to New York on a medical rotation, as well as interns. So that was my main demographic. So being that I was subletting the rooms out through my online business, I was making a lot more than 1% of property value. Yeah. But the only downside is once I moved out of that house and relocated to Atlanta and put a normal tenant in there, I was in a negative cash flow situation.
right. And at that point, then you have to pay for property management too, I assume.
I was still managing out of state, so I was still managing it because I still had the same tenants in place when I moved out. Just one new tenant, so it wasn't too bad. But I ended up just selling the property.
Gotcha.
Within 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so first of all, there's so many little elements wrapped up in that story. I mean, I agree with your supervisor. You're far too creative and entrepreneurial to work for the government. I mean, you didn't just buy a property. You created a website. You created a concept. You defined a certain market. You figured out, I mean, targeting international students. And we don't even need to know all the details to know that, like, you have clearly an entrepreneurial mind to figure out how to take a duplex that doesn't cash flow and make it cash flow by changing the way that you rent it to the market. I mean, that's, kudos, like that's clever. So some things didn't work. And then 4 years later, 30th birthday, you were able to quit your job, right? So clearly in those 4 years, you started acquiring properties. And when you quit your job, had you replaced your income with free cash flow from real estate?
Yes, I have. Yep, I have.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily all my income. My main focus was, I call it the power formula. I want to make sure my passive income exceeds my living expenses.
Right. I always call that the magic number, but same difference. Yeah. It's the thing that sets you free, right?
Correct.
So you did that in 4 years. And what year was this? 2008 to 12 or what?
Yes, 2010 that's when I bought my first property, the duplex, till 2014.
Okay. And 2010, I assume that was actually a decent real estate market, a decent time to start, because we had the Great Recession, 07, 08, and things were kind of still recovering through the first half of that decade, right?
Yes, it was somewhat similar to a perfect storm where the home values were a little bit less than normal, as well as the interest rates were low.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect storm to.
Sounds a little like right now.
Yeah.
I mean, or where we'll probably be in the next year or two as we come out of this pandemic and people's incomes have been hit, their businesses have closed. I mean, I've been kind of waiting for a convergence of my personal situation, my business situation, and the economy to line up and be kind of the right time to go big with real estate. I mean, I have some real estate investments, but it's like I want to go play at a new level. And I mean, I can't help but think we're heading into that right now. I'm curious if you agree.
I do agree, especially with what's going on with COVID-19 and the SBA getting involved, granting small businesses a lot of capital. For example, let's say upwards of $150,000 at 3% interest rate, where you have to pay anything within your first year of obtaining the mortgage or obtaining the loan, I should say, and it's amortized over 30 years. So not only are the housing prices a tad bit lower, the interest rates are lower, but they're also just giving away money, like cheap debt.
Yeah.
So why not use that, especially if you have a business? If you don't have a business already, you should get one. Start an LLC, just do something to be entrepreneurial. But you want to leverage that. so that you can obtain finance from that business to invest in income producing assets.
So your company, I guess we're fast forwarding now, you started 100% financed in 2014, which that's when you quit your job, right?
Absolutely. Yep. It was initially created as a blog.
Okay. And just a blog, you just published free content, education, teaching people how to do this stuff?
Yeah, more so a vlog. It was a YouTube channel.
Oh, a vlog. So, okay, cool.
So I once I started to get near the tail end of retiring from my 9 to 5, I networked a lot. That was one thing I did do in New York City. So even though I spent a lot of time working on real estate myself, any spare time I had, it was networking. I was not hanging out, shooting the breeze. It was purposeful about meeting up with you, right? So a lot of my quote unquote friends, they're friends now. My business associates are friends. They will reach out and say, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go to the bar, get lunch, grab some coffee. So we would meet up, and they will come with a pen and pad, to ask questions about, hey, how were you able to improve your credit? Or, hey, how were you able to get financing for your business so you can use that for real estate? Oh, yeah. And by the way, how were you able to invest in multi-units out of state even? And so I realized I had about 4 associates who would ask these questions. I said, okay, this is what I'll do. I'll answer your questions as long as you write them down, send them to me in an email, and then I'll provide you with the answer. But provide about 10 questions.
Right.
So I surveyed the four gentlemen. I realized they had some similarities in their questions, and I've compiled their questions and made it into an ebook. I made like 10 chapters of a PDF a Word document, converted to a PDF, went on Fiverr.com, hired someone to do some graphic art design and do some proofreading or whatever, and got a PayPal account. And I said, hey, here's your answers, but I have it in my ebook. See, look, these are some questions you asked, but look, here's some other questions you didn't ask. So if you want to get my ebook, you can have it all right there. And they all of them bought it. So then I went to my networking group and said, hey, now I had social proof. Yeah. Hey, 4 people in here, they purchased the ebook. Who else would like it? And some of them bought it. So I realized, man, I should market this. But I wasn't too big of a fan of writing, even though I wrote the ebook. I didn't truly enjoy the process. I just rather just speak and just have my smartphone record. So that's how it happened. I just started blogging a lot of videos and just connecting with people.
Yeah, this is again, I do this show. It's kind of a survey. It's like a meta conversation with all these successful entrepreneurs looking for commonalities. And what you just said, this concept of like documentation along the way as you're coming up, seems that is a theme that comes up fairly often. In fact, like yesterday, I interviewed a guy, Mark Bell, who he's like a strongman. He's super jacked, like power lifter, invented some cool fitness products, really successful guy. But one of the things he said is that from day one, he was like documenting everything that he did, all of his hardships, all of his struggles. And I think there's something so powerful about being willing to, whether you pull your phone out or you type it in a blog, but to document the journey. Because, and this is a theory I've had for a long time, I'm excited to have another opportunity to share it. Like, nobody writes a book, nobody writes the first half of a book without intending to write the second half of the book, right? And the first half of the book is the struggle, and the second half of the book is the transformation or the heroic outcome or the happy part, right? Or maybe the tragedy or whatever, but it's the dramatic part. The first half sets the stage for the emotional part. So like when you're documenting your journey and your process, what you're doing is you're writing the first half of your book. And to me, it creates this momentum. It creates this intention of like, I got to see this through. Because I wrote the first half of the book, I can't stop now. And that's something that to me happens when you start documenting the journey. I'm curious if that lands with you at all. I did it, and I've seen other people do it, and it seems to come up a lot. But is that kind of what you were doing? Was just like chronicling your process?
Somewhat, and that's a good take on that, Jeff. I never thought about that, but I do think that's a good perspective because it's all about doing things on a selfish and unselfish level, right? Selfishly, you should document your story. You should document your processes, so that way you can leverage it. Because it's difficult to become rich, quote unquote, or wealthy without scalability, and it's difficult to scale your business or your services or products to the masses if you don't have a team, and you cannot effectively train your team to operate your business without documentation, without the documentation of your processes or systems. Those are called, SOPs, standard operating procedures. So on a selfish level, document so you can scale your business. You can hire teams to do it. So that way, when you're looking for deals, I'm not the guy looking for deals. I have someone else doing it because I document the process. And then on a unselfish level, I should say, you should document your story. In other words, become an author so that you can give back to humanity. Like there's many authors that I've read their books multiple times, such as The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by not Tim Ferriss. I'm thinking 4 Hour Work Week. That's another one. But by
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey, yeah. So a lot of books I've absorbed and read over and over. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If they didn't document their research or their story, it's like where would I be today? It's like I owe them a world of debt as a result of documenting their story. And I think that's everyone. If you've made it out of something, meaning if you went from rags to riches, from trials to triumph, from sorrow to success, to me, it's your duty to mankind to give back through documenting in a book.
And it's a whole lot easier to document the whole story if you were documenting it the whole time, rather than 10 years later when you emerge victorious being like, okay, I got to write down the last 10 years. Man, that sounds like a lot of work. I totally agree. So here you are. Go ahead.
So that's journaling.
Yeah.
Pretty much like journal. I'm not sure if you read the book. What's it called? Miracle Mornings?
Oh, yeah. Hal Elrod.
Yeah. And that's one of the things he talks about, scribble. He said every day, he has that acronym SAVERS. Mm-hmm. Every day you should scribble, meaning you should document your process every day.
Amen. Amen. And I'm with you. I have found a video. That Steve Jobs made it so easy for us, with our phones, right? And I guess, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and, the platforms plus the devices, it's just so easy now to document. And I think that a lot of people don't mentally think of themselves as like a content creator. Just think of content creation. I mean, and I don't know, I don't want to like project my story onto, as if it represents universal truth, but I was a shy, introverted, kind of frankly insecure person. But for some reason, I decided that I would be a better version of myself if I started creating content. Never mind what it would do for the world. I liked the person that I became in the process of creating content. And every time I did it, I kind of liked who I came out of it a little bit more too. Like, hey, that was cool. I did that, And a lot of people, myself included, don't think of them. They're like, well, who am I? What do I have to say? Why would I put something out to the world? And to some degree, I don't think you can know until you do it. But I'm curious, and this, not to go off track, but I do want to ask, since you started that blog and since you started that vlog and that YouTube channel and you started putting yourself out there to the world a lot, has it changed you? And if so, how?
Yes, it did change me in regard to hygiene.
Bathe and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, because prior to becoming more polished, I would just pull out my phone and just record. And one of my team members at the time said, "Hey, Juan, if you're going to be shooting some videos, man, you got to at least clean up a little bit. Man, you got to at least shave every day, man. You got to, look presentable. At least put a collar shirt on or something." Because I never really focus on my appearance, because my mindset was, well, I'm a real estate investor. I don't have a uniform.
Yeah.
I don't have to put on a suit and tie because I have no one who has a dress code outlined for me. So I would say that was one thing, is just stepping up my appearance. That definitely assisted a tad bit. And for vlogging, it really helped show me that there's people out there who are craving for this information. And I think, to your point, Jeff, you might think it's just common knowledge. Oh yeah, the way you finance the deal is just make sure 80% of the money comes from a mortgage. Go with a portfolio lender, a local bank, in other words, because they're lending out their own pockets and don't have to adhere to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, the secondary mortgage market. And then the other 10% you can get from seller financing if you do 5 units and up. And this is the way you convince the seller to do seller financing. And the latter 10%, you can get that either through partners, through your IRA. You can also leverage it through business credit. And to me, that's like common knowledge. But to most people, their mindset is, whoa, I never knew that. It's like, share more. And then you realize, oh, yeah, the way you get business credit is this. And it's just like, to your point, you are a content creator where you have a wealth of knowledge that needs to get out your head and needs to be put on paper, on video. It needs to be documented in some form or fashion, because it's selfish just to keep it with you. In my opinion, it's extremely selfish. You have to share it. And if you're going to be providing so much value to the world, why not get compensated as a result? Because I know if someone shares a ton of value for me, I'm looking for ways to see how I can return a favor, how I can be a blessing to them. Right. And that's the point. I read the Bible a lot too. It's one of the things I read daily. And I know Abraham, he was saying something along the lines of, to be blessed to be a blessing. Like, if you're blessed in which you gain some sort of success, no matter how small it is, it's your job to be a blessing to others. It's your job to bless others with the knowledge that you've acquired.
Yeah. And the other thing I have to say, that's kind of the counterpart to that, is people say, well, I don't have anything to share. I'm not an expert. I don't have. Well, I mean, if you're 4 years old and you're like, I don't know anything, what am I going to say? Okay, that's fine. You're 4 years old. But if you're 30 or 40 or 65 and you've managed to go this long without learning anything worth sharing, clearly you've been spending your time on the wrong stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't say that as an excuse. Say that as a conviction. Like, oh man, I don't have anything to share. I better go acquire some knowledge that's worth sharing, or because I can't keep wasting my time. I mean, I'm saying that like it's a little bit of tough love, but like I hear the excuses. I mean, call them what they are. I hear the excuses from people why they don't take action. Some of it's personal, some of it's emotional, some of it's confidence, some of it's they profess it's like willful ignorance. They're like, but I don't know anything. And I'm like, well, you got to change that, or else certainly nothing else is going to change. Get educated.
Yeah, and even if you lack the expertise, go find someone else who has it. And there's many people who are excellent interviewers, like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, amen.
Right, she's a billionaire simply because she just invites experts onto her platform.
Yeah, I mean, I started a podcast and in a YouTube interview show. I have learned so much. And by the way, I have the coolest friends. I actually today, I went in and was updating my Dream 100 list. It's like the list of the 100 people that have the most impact. Like for example, I'm working on a book that I'm going to publish and release next year. Who are the 100 people that could help me get my book out to the most people possible? Well, I was updating that list today, and you can be sure that doing the last 80 interviews on this show has had a significant impact on my Dream 100 list. I know people a whole level above who I used to know. And I've learned from them, and I've become smarter because of them, and I've become inspired because of them. I mean, you just said a mouthful with this whole, like, if you don't know it, go find someone else who does and invite them to have a conversation.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, just, the other thing I've learned is that it's one thing to learn something and to tell yourself, oh, I know that thing. I read the book. I know it. It's a whole other thing to have to turn around and explain it to someone else. And it's a whole other thing still to turn around and explain it to the world and put it out for public. Say, I'll use, for example, I did a video. I'll just pick a random thing. I did a video about improving your credit, actually. In order for me to actually put a video on the internet about how to improve your credit, I had to be really confident that I actually knew how to improve your credit. So what did that force me to do? It forced me to actually learn how to improve my credit to a level far beyond the average guy who just read an article on how to improve your credit. But if you asked them, well, explain to me, tell me exactly how you do it, they go, oh yeah, just read the article. That guy doesn't really know it. I know it because I had to learn it to the level that I could teach it, and teach it with the confidence to say, I'm going to publish it. It's creating a higher standard for yourself, right? And for you, I have to imagine that being a real estate investment educator makes you a much better real estate investor. Is that right?
Yeah. To your point of learning is that I have to be aware of what's going on in the market. Mm-hmm. So you have to be privy to, how is, let's say, COVID-19 affecting the real estate market. And plus, I continuously learn things about the market that I do invest to see what's going on, maybe emerging markets that's going around in the market that I invest in. And also reading books about multi-unit or multifamily real estate investing. Yes, you have to stay sharp. Otherwise, you'll fall behind. You'll get rusty.
And when your stuff is getting published, it means that it's potentially going to be scrutinized by people who know as much or more than you. And so it reduces the BS factor. Like, you can't get away with just plugging the gaps with assumptions and just pretense, because you're like, I could get called out if I say something that isn't accurate or that isn't current. Right?
Yeah. Even when you ever go to a restaurant and you say, hey, does this come with any sauce on it? And they'll say, I believe so.
Right.
It's like,
you don't know.
Yeah. Just be honest. Do you not know? And if you don't know, just go seek out the answer,
Exactly. Yeah. I like that. It's been a really powerful developmental thing for me to start creating all this content, because I can't afford to be off my game. I can't afford to be uninformed, and I can't afford to be full of crap. Anyways, so I want to shift into real estate specific conversation. And I don't expect you to share everything that someone would get if they went through your course, but and I want you to talk more about what 100% Finance actually offers. But in general, I'm curious. I mean, I seem to hear multifamily, like residential multifamily. Is that kind of your preferred piece of the market in terms of investing?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So you prefer that over commercial, and obviously over single family, clearly.
Correct. I prefer that over commercial, single family, and it's mainly buy and hold, meaning obtaining rental units. So not necessarily wholesaling or flipping, but strictly.
Are you someone who goes in and tries to find like a more distressed or undervalued multifamily property and be able to renovate it to add a ton of value? Or go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Great question though. That's more of a value play, where you have to buy a distressed asset, add value, meaning do the repairs that's needed, put a tenant in there, and then you can do a refinance and refinance out of the assumed hard money you might have used to acquire that.
Right.
But we typically focus on yield plays, meaning we buy properties that are already yielding cash flow, meaning it's 100% occupied. And if it's occupied at closing, you're getting cash flow at closing, meaning the rent credits and security deposits are being credited to you on the settlement statement.
Right.
Because we as well as our investors, we typically invest in better markets simply because many of our investors live in markets that are a tad bit pricey, such as New York's or LA's or the Miami, Chicago. So they really can't afford to do multi-units in those markets. So we make sure that the properties are in decent shape and 100% occupied, because if you're an out-of-state investor, there's less risk involved.
Yeah, you don't want to have to be relying on plumbers and carpet guys and sheetrock guys to go make your property up to par when you're not there to control them and you may not have the relationships in that market.
Yes, the only repairs we will entertain are more so cosmetic repairs.
Okay.
But prior to closing on the property, we do a property inspection. So we make sure everything from the roof to the crawl space gets inspected. And if there's any major items, such as the furnaces, mechanical furnaces, water heaters, plumbing, electrical, roof, foundational issues, environmental issues, like if there's mold or mildew or infestation of rodents or what have you, any of those things, those are non-negotiable. So meaning, hey, either you give us a credit at closing for us to repair it, and it's going to be expensive, by the way, or you have to get everything fixed up and we have to inspect it to make sure it's done right prior to closing. And so we don't negotiate with major repairs, also safety repairs. So sometimes, Jeff, we might walk up to a building, for example, and the handrail is shaky. So it's not really a major repair. It might cost a few bucks to fix, but it's a safety hazard. Mm-hmm. So anything that's a major related item or a safety hazard, those are non-negotiables. You have to give us a huge credit at closing for us to fix it, or you have to fix it yourself, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, but we have to inspect it afterwards just to make sure it was done in an adequate fashion.
What
closing is a safe investment.
What are some examples of the types of markets that you're looking for that are right, I guess, the right size to be both affordable but also stable?
Markets, you mean such as cities that we invest in?
Yeah, I assume. I mean,
okay.
For me, like I always think like Midwest, like Kansas City, Oklahoma City, lower cost of living, but still vital markets.
Yeah, it's a great question. So while I lived in the New York, New Jersey area, after buying my first duplex for $355,000, I've decided to invest in Pittsburgh, PA. So we've been investing in there since 2010. And what sparked that interest, while I was at my real estate investing group, I had a fellow network attendee, Steve, who bought a 6-unit out of state. And I was just floored by that. This gentleman was about my age, bought a 6-unit for one, a multifamily, bought it out of state for 2, and for 3, he was similar to me. He was my age. He wasn't some older gentleman buying properties. He was a young guy. And I immediately took him out to lunch and I asked him for the 3 M's: the money, the model, the market. Hey, how'd you finance this deal? Oh, use a mortgage company. Who do you use? Oh, you use FCB, First Commonwealth Bank. Oh, really? Who's the main contact person there? Oh, Linda. You might want to get her number. And then, oh, tell me more about the market. Why Pittsburgh? Oh, it's because you get 10% cap rates? Oh, because this is one of the number 1 most livable cities in the U.S.? Okay, and what is your business model? Oh, you buy multifamily. Why? Oh, because with multifamily, you can use seller financing. Oh, also about your model is you make sure it's 100% occupied. Why is that? So I pretty much took him out to lunch with a pen and pad and broke down his criteria. And I've been investing in Pittsburgh and Harrisburg ever since.
Wow. And it's so crazy, man. Real estate is just so exciting to me. Are you familiar with Clayton Morris? He has a real estate investing podcast.
I'll search him up. Clayton Morris, you said?
Yeah. I was actually on his show this morning and we were just talking about, I'm not like a sophisticated real estate investor, but I know enough to be dangerous. But we were talking about just business and, grinding it out and getting to the other side and what it really takes. But yeah, we were having a good conversation and he was saying, you can try 10 different things, 10 different ways, kind of like you described, right? I mean, there's like 10 at least 10 different ways to do it. And only one of them's got to work. I think you said that too, actually. Like only one of them's got to work. And so I want people to hear that. Like all you had to do was find one good market, one good model, and one good, capital structure or financing structure. And you can iterate that. Literally, you could do it thousands of times. Like you could spend your entire career, if Pittsburgh is the place, you could just buy up all of Pittsburgh. Well, you could never buy up all of Pittsburgh. You couldn't even scratch the surface of Pittsburgh. But you could have $100 million worth of real estate in Pittsburgh and still not even be the tip of the iceberg, right? And that's my encouragement is like, you only got to find one thing. But you might have to go through 100 things to find the one thing. But it's worth it. I mean, right? It's worth it to find it. It changed everything.
That's true, Jeff. I was talking to a good business friend of mine maybe about 2 or 3 weeks back. And he's having some success in his business. He does credit repair. So he's somewhat of a competitor, but he's a friend of mine. I like to kind of be close to my enemies. So they over drinks, they kind of give you their business secrets,
That's what it is. You like to get a few drinks in them.
Yeah, that way they loosen up.
Yeah, exactly.
And they feel calm, and it just knocks the edge off,
Yeah.
So I was meeting up with him. It was maybe a Friday night at some sports bar. And I'm like, wow, you're making some really good strides in your business, man, especially in certain areas, like even better than what I'm doing. And I'm just curious, like, how are you doing this? He's like, oh, I make sure I spend time on this, spend time on that. And then it hit me without him even telling me. He's been focusing on death in his business. I've been focusing on breath. Meaning, let me try this venture. Oh, let me try this venture. Let me try this other market. Let me try this. Like he realized that, hey, you know what? I'm just going to try this one thing and I'm going to go as deep as possible. I'm going to build a trench, a moat so far deep that no one can compete. And from that conversation, I realized, oh man, I gotta cut some things loose. I gotta cut some other ventures that I was somewhat entertaining, but not really provide me with the best return. And I just gotta devote my time onto a few small things to give it the biggest impact.
It's funny you say that. I appreciate it at a personal level. I had to step back from something I was doing in the last month. I've had to step back from it. And I had to, no matter how professional and all business you try to be, at the end of the day, sometimes other people feel let down, and this was a case where my feelings were preventing me from doing the smart business thing, which is all just about consolidating my focus and my energy. I mean, the reality is I should be Entre and my podcast. That should pretty much be my life. And my family, obviously personal stuff too. But anything else is right now, it's like you said, it's a lower return and going deep. I mean, yeah, I see that a lot, especially on the internet too. I mean, it sounds like it's the same in real estate, but I coach a lot of digital marketers, people that are trying to build online businesses. And the internet is the worst, man. You spend 30 seconds getting traction with one thing, and there's like 9 shiny objects over here going, well, don't miss out on the latest Instagram hack, or don't miss out on, did you know that TikTok is the new, it's what Facebook was 10 years ago, and it's like nobody can concentrate for more than 3 days on anything. And they never build any depth. And that's the hardest thing, man, because it takes a lot. Because the thing about it's like going to the gym. Like the first, I don't know if you work out a lot, but I remember the first 3 months, when I was young and I started working out, I got so much stronger so fast when I first started going to the gym. Now I go to the gym. I'm 41 years old. I've been working out on and off for decades, but really consistently for the last 5 years. I go in and I work my ass off, and I never get any stronger anymore. I'm just working just to not go backwards at this point.
To maintain.
Yeah, and I mean every 6 months, I might have a little breakthrough. Like depth takes time because the rate of progress slows down the better you get at things. And so people don't see it all the way through. I'm curious if you've experienced that too, where it can be tempting to want to do things where progress can happen faster because you haven't gone as far.
Yeah, it's the common mistake I believe most entrepreneurs make is the shiny object syndrome. It's like an old African proverb: the man who chases many foxes ends up catching neither. Select that one fox, give it all your attention, all your might, and just catch that one fox. That's all you have to do. And it's difficult too, because even logically we'll try to convince ourselves that, oh, I'm just minimizing my risk. Isn't that what they say? You should diversify.
Yeah.
Like, no, put all your eggs in that one basket.
Diversify your investments. Don't diversify your focus.
There you go.
Right? I think that's a big distinct. Yeah, people here preach diversification from their financial advisor. That's great. Your money can be as diverse as you want, but your mind can't. So you've settled on Pittsburgh, multifamily, and you have a specific model. And again, I'm not trying to get you to air all your best secrets, although this is Millionaire Secrets, but I will ask, you've mentioned this a couple times, the seller financing model. Because yeah, even me, I say even me like I'm some big deal, but me, for example, I go into a deal, I expect that I'm probably going to have to come up with 20%. And your whole brand, 100% finance, says, actually, Jeff, that might not be the case. So I'd like to hear more about the 10% seller financed. The other 10%, I mean, and again, if I'm extrapolating correctly from what you said, it's like 80% traditional, 10% seller, 10% private party.
Yes.
Is that kind of private parties, circumstantial and changes every time, I presume. But the 10% seller finance, are you comfortable explaining in more detail kind of how that works?
Sure. I can give the secret away. So with seller financing, the first thing you have to do is convince the agent that this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like most people, they'll reach out to the agent and say, hey, I need to do this deal, but we have to use seller financing. And so the agent immediately thinks that, oh, this person is broke.
Yeah.
If this person is broke, that means I'm not getting my commission, right? So what you have to share with them is, hey, I am credible. Hey, I do have capital, or I have access to capital. So I will provide them with bank statements, and I'll black out the account name and the account number. So whether that bank statement came from me or a partner, my uncle, my cousin, or whoever else was fortunate enough to give me a copy of their bank statement with all their personal information blacked out, I'll provide that to the agents, showing them that, hey, I have the capital. And the reason why I'm blacking out this information is to keep my banking information confidential. You're not a lender, so there's no need for you to actually see my account number or the name of the entity the account is under. Right? I'm just providing this to you just to let you know that I'm not broke. Right. That I have capital to invest. So you share that with them, so that you have to convince them first and foremost, the agent, that you have money.
Right.
Then after you convince them that, then it's you have a deal in place. You say, okay, in order to do this deal, we had to use seller finance. And this is the reason why, because I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking I'm broke. But this is the reason why. The reason being is the amount of capital that I have currently, let's say it's $50,000. I want to be able to spread this $50,000 of capital across 2 or 3 deals. So that means for you, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, that you will get commission, because I love working with you, off 2 deals for this $50,000 instead of 1 deal. Wouldn't you love to make commission off of 2 deals? So that's negotiations, right?
Yeah.
So when you share it out with the agent, it's like, what's in it for them?
Right.
So when you share it out with the agent, and the agent is sold on seller financing, now you have to be the entrepreneur and train the agent and delegate tasks to the agent, such as, all right, great, you're on board, agent. So this is what I need you to do next. I need you to have a conversation with the seller, provide them with my credibility packet, meaning a copy of my credit report showing that I'm a great borrower. And that's important, because if I'm doing seller financing, that means I'm having a note with the seller. So I want the seller to see that I have good credit, right? And if you don't have the good credit, then of course, find a person who has a good credit report. So I will share that document. So I'll tell the agent to share that document, the credit report, with the seller, along with the bank statements, and speak highly of me. That, oh, this guy is a good businessman. He's a good investor. He's very credible. I worked with him in the past, blah, blah, blah. Meaning, in other words, hype me up. Like sell me to the seller. And then once you sell the seller, I would like you to book a 3-way phone conversation with all 3 of us, because I want to expound upon the details of seller finance with the seller. So we do the 3-way call, and I'll thank everyone for joining the call, build rapport, and then I'll say, okay, well, I would like to do the seller finance, but hey, seller, I know what you think. That's like my favorite line. Hey, I know what you're thinking. So that way I tackle the negative side effects that could happen with seller financing. So I just tackle it head on. So I'll say, hey, seller, I know what you're thinking. Hey, what if I default? Well, for one, did you have an opportunity to take a look at my credit report? Well, you see my credit report is looking pretty good, right? So that speaks volumes of my credit worthiness as a borrower. So I'm definitely going to repay this debt. In worst case scenario, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, being that you have a second mortgage, if I default, you can foreclose on me. So you actually think I'm going to let this property go into foreclosure off of this minor 10% loan that I have with you?
Right.
That'd be ridiculous. And secondly, my credit score is so good. Do you actually think I'm going to tarnish my my reputation as a borrower on my credit, when my credit score is concerned, with this minor 10% loan that I have with you?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, wouldn't you still love to make money off a property you no longer own?
Mm-hmm.
And so once I go over those 3 things and they agree, and I say, well, that's the reason why the interest rate is 5%. So I normally, for all my deals, they've been 5 to 6% in interest rate, nothing higher. And that, because what I do is I share with them all the risks that I incur. That, hey, it's risky for me. You know, if anything, you know, you're making money off this deal, and you don't even own it.
Right.
You have 0 risk. And secondly, you know, I'm the one that got my name on the line, and this property can be foreclosed on.
Mm-hmm.
If I default on your small loan. So I typically negotiate, just give you more secrets, 5% interest rates, amortized, meaning the time it takes to pay it off within 20 years. And sometimes I'll negotiate a balloon payment, meaning the remaining principal has to be paid off in about 5 years. So that's what I typically negotiate.
Because by then you'll probably have enough equity in the property that even if you had to refinance to pay the balloon on the second, you probably could.
Yes, because year 4, that's when I start looking into my exit strategy. So by year 4, I'm looking at, okay, well, do I want to continue to hold this property? If so, with seller financing, how will I be able to exit? Can I do a cash out refinance? Do I have enough capital build up that can pay off this debt? Do I have another partner that I might want to put in a cash injection and I can use this to pay off the seller financing? Or do I want to sell the property because it grew tremendously in equity that I can just flip this multi-unit? So year 4, that's when I start entertaining my exit strategies.
Yeah, this is powerful stuff. The one other question I want, and I'm sensitive to time. I know that we both have something else looming, so I'm gonna be quick with this question. But one thing you mentioned is hard money. Do you do anything with hard money?
I have in the past. Now I prefer soft money over hard money. Hard money means is basically the terms are hard, meaning the interest rate is double-digit interest rate. You got to repay it in a year time frame, and it's mainly used for distressed assets. So as we discussed, I typically buy pretty properties that are already in decent shape with tenants already in them. So I typically use conventional financing for that.
So what is somebody listening to this who goes, man, I want that. I want to get involved. I mean, obviously you don't do all the deals yourself. You have a service that connects people with these types of deals, right?
I do. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how does somebody go learn more about that?
You can go to our website. We actually got a free webinar training for those who are interested. It's called multiunittraining.com. if you just go to multiunittraining.com, you'll be able to find a webinar in which you can go through, in which I share pretty much the 4 phases to the cash flow cycle.
Okay.
Which is, give you a quick summary. Find the money. This is an order of priority, sequential order. Find the money first. How are you going to finance a deal? Secondly, find a deal, which means how are you going to submit offers, locate your deal finders, your agents, how to analyze deals, how to submit offers, what type of language should you have in your offers or your purchase and sell agreement. All that stuff is find a deal. Third is perform due diligence. That's the meticulous, tedious part of buying a property, meaning everything has to be inspected. The property has to be inspected as well as the financials. Just because the seller says the rent is $700 a month doesn't mean that it's true. He could be trying to sell the property because it's a big headache on his hands. So
you've had cases where the seller misrepresented the financials?
Absolutely. Oh man, it happens all the time. Such as I remember I was entertaining buying this one property. I think it was a 50 unit. And as I'm doing the due diligence for this particular property, the yearly income was $70,000. And upon verifying the rent, I'm doing online research. I'm checking out public assistance, what they pay. Checking out my other online resources. And I think I calculated about $64,000. I looked at the leases. I called the tenants. Right, I'm doing an extensive diligence, right? And I came to $64,000. And so I brought it to my agent's attention, like, hey, do you mind? And you never want to be accusatory either. You always want to ask a question such as, hey, do you mind providing me a letter of explanation? Because based upon my research, the yearly revenue is $64,000 and not $70,000. So maybe I made a mistake on my part. But do you mind providing an explanation? That's pretty much the same script I use when there's ever a discrepancy with the financials. And the seller responded, my bad. That was just a mathematical error on my part. And so I responded, well, my bad. We're going to have to renegotiate. So absolutely. And it's not to say that. That's why I say ask for explanation. Don't be accusatory thinking, oh, the seller's trying to get over on me. The seller's a bad person. You never know. It could just be an error.
Right.
But hey, whatever the case may be, it didn't match up.
Huh. Interesting. Well, how about people that maybe they're not ready to buy, but they want to learn more? Where should they go?
Oh, excellent. So if you're not ready to buy, the free option, if you're interested in just getting started for free, just check out our social media, our YouTube channel, 100% Finance, also Instagram and Facebook. Just search that handle, 100% Finance. You'll find a great amount of information. But if you really want to take it serious, like I mentioned, like, hey, I stopped treating this like a hobby and I'm going to treat this like a job, then I'll say just check out that webinar I mentioned, multiunittraining.com. You can just go to that website. It's a free webinar for you. It's about an hour to hour and 20 minutes in length. Okay. And it goes over those 4 phases. The last phase is closing the property, but it goes in more depth.
What size multifamily properties are you typically steering people towards? Or maybe are you looking at yourself? I mean, you're going 100 units or 4 or 12, or what's your sweet spot?
Great question. So we had partners as well as clients. Partners meaning I invested with them, or clients we just did the legwork for them. 21 units, 16 units. We typically stay within the ballpark up to 20 units because that's pretty much been the main sweet spot that we found a lot of deals for. Yeah. But I do have to put that caveat out there. If you're new, you're just getting started, meaning you've never bought a property, not even a personal residence, there's nothing wrong with having to crawl before you can run. Okay, so starting with me, as I shared, my first property was a duplex. While we lived the one unit around the other. My next property was a single family, and I bought that with hard money. I bought that with credit cards. That was a big mistake. Then I bought a 4 unit. So I bought a 2 unit, a single family, and a 4 unit before I was able to get into multifamily, because these local lenders I mentioned, portfolio lenders, meaning they're lending out their own portfolio, who are less stringent than major banks like Bank of America or Citibank or whoever, Chase. their thing is, well, does this person have experience in investing, for one? And for two, do they have experience in investing in this market?
Right.
This person's an out-of-state investor. I'd rather them fall small than fall big. Meaning, I'd rather them default on this $75,000 loan that I give them than me giving them a $750,000 loan to buy a 50 unit, and this is their first time buying a property. So if you're new, somewhere between 2 and 4 units might be your sweet spot. So you might have to do a couple of deals. And sometimes people just want to go from 0 to 100 real quick. Oh, no, I want to get a 100 unit right now. I have $80,000 saved up. I have $200,000. That's great. But experience matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, let's leave it at that for now. I have a million more questions, but maybe we'll have you back, or I'll go watch your webinar and probably get a lot of them answered. Juan, this has been awesome, man. I have learned so much. I want to share with the audience as well that, I've got a free ebook called The Millionaire Shortcut. It's the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. And it's not explicitly in the book, but it would certainly be consistent with what's in the book to say, go follow Juan and do the stuff that he teaches. But if somebody goes to millionairesecrets.com/Juan P, JUANP, you can download a free copy of that book, and we'll know that you came to it from this episode. So Juan, thanks for being on Millionaire Secrets, man. This has been amazing.
Oh, thanks. And by the way, the website is multi-unit income training. I think I said multi-unit training earlier, so I just wanted to clarify that. multiunitincometraining.com. Okay,
awesome. And we'll get that link and put it in the description wherever this show appears.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you. And thank you to the audience out there. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.